Good afternoon. Welcome back to Passionate World Talk Radio, a wholly owned subsidiary of Global Media Network, LLC. Educate, enlighten, entertain, mindfulness. And on today's program, we are talking about a report coming in from NPR. And it is about the U.S. Department of Defense, which states that they will no longer provide satellite weather data, leaving hurricane forecasters without crucial information about storms as peak hurricane season looms in the Atlantic. And now you're going to say, gosh, Lillian, does that have anything to do with the catastrophe that happened in, that county in Texas, where approximately 20 young girls are missing or dead because A, the county decided it would cost too much money to install a warning hurricane device, and B, because it is no longer legal for the Defense Department to share weather data from the satellites that were put up 40 years ago. 40 years ago, the Defense Department operated satellites that collected information about conditions in the atmosphere and ocean. A group within the Navy called the Fleet Numerical Meteorology and Oceanography Center processes the raw data from the satellites and turns it over to scientists and weather forecasters who use it for a wide range of purposes, including real-time hurricane forecasting and measuring sea ice in polar regions. In late June, the Department of Defense announced that it would no longer provide that data according to a notice published by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the NOAA. The termination date was originally the end of June, but after an outcry from scientists and forecasters, it was updated to the end of July, according to the Navy. However, it didn't work out well for them or our current sitting president of the United States, who also ordered the shutdown of these weather satellites and prevented them from sharing information with people, weather stations, news stations in the United States of America. Thank you, Mr. President. Brian Tang, a hurricane researcher at the University at Albany, said, I was surprised given how important it is for forecasting hurricanes and monitoring important features like sea ice. This is data that forecasters use regularly. The Navy did not respond to questions about why it has stopped sharing the data with scientists and forecasters. A spokesperson for the U.S. Space Force, which is responsible for the satellites, said in a statement that the satellites and instruments are still functional, and the Department of Defense will continue to use them even as it cuts off access for scientists. And Mark Cerise, the director of the National Snow and Ice Data Center, a federally funded research center in Colorado that has relied on the soon-to-be terminated Defense Department data to track sea ice, said since 1979, it's not an issue of funding cuts. There are cybersecurity concerns. That's what we're being told. No, it's not cybersecurity signs. The Navy did not respond to questions about what those specific concerns might be. In a statement, all it said was the program no longer meets our information technology modernization requirements. Another comment by me then, what does and when will this advanced science be put in? It's a little late for California, North Carolina, South Carolina. Parts of Pennsylvania are going to be, and New Jersey are going to be underwater today. So, and let's not forget what happened in Texas. Are you going to explain that to the parents, aunts and uncles and grandparents of those 20 girls that were drowned because they didn't receive the proper data to inform them that it was going to turn into a horrendous flood? Or maybe we've all forgotten about Katrina in New Orleans. First the hurricane, and then the walls came a-tumbling down. The Department of Defense collects satellite weather information because it has ships and planes operating all over the world and needs information about conditions in the oceans and atmospheres. But the Defense Department data also allowed hurricane forecasters to see hurricanes as they form and monitor them in real time. What we can do with the data is we can see the structure of hurricane, Tang explains, sort of like an MRI or X-ray. For example, hurricane experts can see where the center of a newly formed storm is, which allows them to figure out as early as possible what direction it's likely to go and whether the storm might hit land. That's important for people, or those 20 girls, for example, who need as much time as possible, whether to evacuate or to prepare their homes for wind and water. The data also allows forecasters to see when a new eye wall has formed in the center of the storm, which can indicate that the hurricane is about to intensify. For example, Tang says, forecasters at the National Hurricane Center use the data from Defense Department satellites to observe a circular eye wall forming in Hurricane Eric earlier this month as it moved over the Pacific. That was a really good indication that the storm was about to intensify much more quickly than the computer models indicated it was going to intensify, which allows forecasters to publish early warnings. The storm hit Mexico as a destructive Category 3 hurricane. The NOAA, which oversees the National Hurricane Center, says the loss of the Defense Department data will not lead to less accurate hurricane forecasts this year. Really? Gee, you could have fooled me. In a statement, NOAA Communications Director Kim Dorster said NOAA's data sources are fully capable of providing a complete suite of cutting-edge data and models that ensure the gold standard weather forecasting the American people deserve, unquote. However, in an article I read earlier this morning, a forecaster for the weather station pretty much spelled it out. Americans can expect more of these storms and inaccurate weather forecasts. Thank you very much for listening to Historical, lest we forget, talking about the two newspapers, one on June 28th and the other one on June 30th, NPR June 28th, CNN on June 30th, about satellites being taken out of action or the information not being shared to the American public or to news and weather stations just because. Thank you very much for listening. This show is sponsored by Ruby.ai. Check us out. AIwithlillian.com takes you over to Ruby AI. It has demonstrations of the product plus lots of testimonials. And while you're there, sign up for a monthly subscription. Also from Conscious Research Solutions, you can find us at passionatworldtalkradio.com/research made simple blog. Read all the pain points one has when trying to obtain or attain, depending how you want to look at it, research, basic, mid-level, or deep research. And while you're there, sign up for a 15-minute free consultation. And if you want to hear the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, ahead of time, during the time, and way after everybody's trying to forget it, please think about donating to passionatworldtalkradio.com/donation. It is an all-woman-run, woman-operated internet talk radio station. We've been up for 19 years, and we're looking at another 19. Thank you very much, and have a great day.